upon their arrival was almost unspeakable.
We thought all evil in some form or another. I'm not guilty.
The dead won't bother you. It's the living you gotta worry about.
If I couldn't keep them there with me whole, at least I felt that I could keep their skeletons.
Hello and welcome to the Bad Taste Crime Podcast. I'm Vicky.
I'm Janelle.
Ocean.
I'm outside.
Put your ear to the podcast. Can you hear the ocean waves?
I wish I could do a seagull screech. I was going to try that, but I was like, let's not do it. Oh, that was great. Yes.
I don't know.
Now it's sounding like something's being murdered. Seagull being murdered.
Oh my God. So welcome to the show. If this is your first time listening, a special hello to you. We've got some good summer vibes coming your way.
Yeah. So many summer vibes.
Some kind of summer vibe. But first, let's head over to the newsroom.
Fit to breathe, our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad.
This week, we are looking at a story out of New York. I think this is kind of important to talk about because it's coming out more and more. But ChatGPT. So
it's such a topic at school.
Yeah. So for the uninitiated, platforms like ChatGPT or Bard AI on Google are AI-driven tools that are open to the public to be used for pretty much whatever. Mm-hmm. There are also AI art things like Midjourney, which I'm sure it comes up a little bit more in your world as far as AI-generated art.
Both the art and the written portion.
Oh, yeah, because now people are talking about using ChatGPT to write papers.
For us specifically, artist statements.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So this is definitely like a hot topic. Mm-hmm. There was a case out of New York where a judge found that a filing was used or was referencing legal cases that didn't exist. Turns out, turns out that the lawyer who prepared this brief used ChatGPT to formulate this brief for him, which, because it's an AI, and they put these disclaimers out there like, this information may not be 100% accurate. Mm-hmm. Because it was AI, it referenced like these non-existent cases.
Right, yeah.
So
because it has to be taught things.
Right. Yeah. It's a learning. Mm-hmm. It's machine learning, right? And what you can do with ChatGPT, for example, is, place text, copy and paste, say a paragraph or something from a legal brief and say, can you give me a summary of what's in this? Or can you write me, based on this text, can you write me X, Y, and Z?
Yeah. Can you edit it to be 500 words instead of the 1,000 words that it is currently?
You can do that kind of stuff with ChatGPT. You can full on go in and be like, can you write me a paper on 17th century France?
We did this as an exercise for one of our graduate classes by taking out 5 to 7 words or phrases to rewrite a artist statement. Mm-hmm. And it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was so bad. I'm like, how does anyone mistake this for real writing?
Right.
Because it's bad.
Yeah. It's like the uncanny valley of writing.
It sounds like a child just learning how to write. Is what it sounds like.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, I feel like it's a good starting point maybe, but you really need to like heavily edit and read and go back and like look at all that stuff, right? There's also been this response to ChatGPT where they're using AI to grade papers and the AI is worse at grading papers arguably than the AI is at creating them.
Yeah.
Where it's flagging stuff that is very clearly not
a problem.
AI generated.
Yeah.
But in this case, the original case involved, it was a man suing an airline over alleged personal injury. The legal brief was submitted, cited these court cases. When the judge was looking through to look at what these court cases had to say, he's like, I can't find them. And then he went, this is from the BBC, Judge Castle wrote that 6 of the submitted cases appear to be bogus judicial decisions with bogus quotes and bogus internal citations. Then it comes out that the attorney on the case actually had another attorney prepare it for him, and that attorney is the one who used ChatGPT, that the representing attorney was unaware of the tools that he was using to create the brief, and that he regrets, putting this in the hands of somebody who relied on a chatbot, essentially. But it definitely brings this question of whether chatbots or AI have a place in the legal system. This is not the first time I've heard of this being used like within a legal proceeding. There was a couple months ago a judge that used, I think, ChatGPT to aid in him writing an opinion. It's kind of problematic a little bit.
Yeah.
I see better use in like creative fields.
Yes.
Not like these very technical fields that you need to have accuracy
and expertise.
Yeah. Because like you said, it's like a learning. It's like teaching a child law, right? Like,
yeah. And there was just recently this past week, a professor falsely accused his students of using ChatGPT to write their papers. And it was because he put it through an automated system to check if it was false, and it came back false, and it wasn't.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and there's always been a lot of panic around the introduction of AI in general. For a lot of reasons. I think on one end, people are more worried about replacing the human element in workforces. Yeah. But on the other extreme end, there's sort of the AI taking over humanity thing that people are worried about.
Terminator ourselves.
It's interesting now that things like ChatGPT and BART AI have been out like for a little bit now. The conversations that are happening are like, people don't actually need to be as worried because the AI is dumb as fuck. Like,
yeah, it's so fucking obvious.
Yeah.
And like with the art aspect thing of it.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to people who are out there who are digital artists, but it all looks the same to me.
No, totally. 100%. I've played around with Midjourney quite a bit, and like it's cool. It is so cool, but like literally, like, you would not be able to distinguish that from somebody who creates digital art. As somebody who was a graphic designer, like,
yeah, it just looks
undistinguishable.
And it's like, but what does that say about digital art in and of itself?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, art on a whole is
there really an artist's hand if you are drawing in Procreate?
Listen.
Because unless you create all of those drawing implements from scratch, specifically for you, someone else is drawing exactly.
Yeah.
As an artist.
I just think like this.
There's nothing to fear.
No. And I think that these kind of conversations are important because this is now sort of like.
But also it should be like, there should be better, like, we should be creating AI to do better things. Like, there is a meme that's been going around since all of this. Like, why can't we create AI to clean up the plastic in the ocean?
Yeah, right.
Stuff like that. Like, why can't we actually use it for real things?
Yeah.
Instead of trying to, quote unquote, replace human jobs, quote unquote.
I do really love the content creators that use AI to create like crochet patterns and then do the crochet pattern. They'll be like, make me a crochet Mickey Mouse pattern.
It's funny.
And then they put it together and it's like wonky as hell. So that's my favorite use of AI.
Yeah, don't use it for like serious stuff is basically what I'm saying. Like any of the things that are already created, it's for fun.
Yeah.
Emphasis on the fun.
For real.
Yeah.
Okay.
Off of our soapboxes.
We're going to move on to Netflix and Kill. This week is an HBO and Kill. Because we are talking about how to create a sex scandal.
I literally just watched this yesterday.
And it's been on there for a minute. I think it came out last year.
Did it?
Yes.
I don't fucking remember anymore.
I don't remember it. This is a wild story. You think it's one thing, and then it's not.
It harkens back a little bit to the Satanic Panic.
Yeah. And the McMartin
preschool-esque kinds of things.
Yeah.
And it takes place in Texas. So
it does.
That's all you really need to know.
Yeah. So essentially, and this it sort of begins in 2005. There is a small town in Mineola, Texas, where first it was revealed that there was a swingers club in town.
You do you, baby. As long
Everybody
as it's safe and consensual.
Knew where it was at. That was kind of a big thing. But then a woman who is a foster, this husband and wife who are foster parents, but specifically the woman was like sort of the ringleader of all of this.
Yes.
Come forward and say that some of the children they've been fostering have allegations of being forced to perform in the local swingers club. Mm-hmm. Okay. So
Vicky, they kept calling it a sex kindergarten.
Yeah.
And I can't not hear that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So there were allegations that the children were being taken to train at the sex kindergarten.
They said it so many times. I'm triggered by just the word kindergarten now.
Yes. Yeah. I know. It's just so weird.
Out of
you
control.
Don't put those two things together. After they were finished, they would go perform various duties at the swingers club. And then, so these allegations come forward. There are arrests that are made of their biological parents. All of them are convicted of various crimes. The children were interviewed by a Texas Ranger with their foster mother in the room.
Leading questions.
Very leading questions.
Oh,
all of these very big staples of like child sexual abuse during the satanic panic time.
Like literally verbatim. And it's decades later.
Yeah.
You know?
Then it sort of comes
plot
out.
Twist.
There's this plot twist, allegations of the foster mother being extremely abusive, that
the foster father as well.
Yes. Yeah. And the foster father molesting one of his foster kids. They have denied these allegations, as we're saying, and they have not been charged with anything. Right. But it slowly comes out that these kids were perhaps coached to provide these answers in relation to the allegations about performing at the swingers club. And the tables kind of turn. And now this is maybe not the story that you thought it was. There were allegations that many law enforcement officials were
coercing
members of the swingers club and coercive to the children. It's just a winding, crazy story. I honestly, I had watched the Jared Fogle documentary and then watched this immediately after. And I was like, this is probably a terrible decision because like 2 heavy hitting documentaries about child sex crimes are like a lot.
It's a lot.
But this
for your
one,
mental health.
Yes. But this one is like, because the story is so like just this web, it's like sucks you in a different way. What are your thoughts on all of
I just kept
that?
Getting flashbacks to covering the McMartin trial and like the things that she was saying and the descriptions. I mean, they didn't overtly say like it was satanic, but there were definitely undertones of that. And the interviews with the children, like you could just see them. They were repeating things.
Yeah.
And the biggest twist is it was siblings. And 2 of the siblings have come out and said that we were coached and one of them has not.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, I think on the whole
conflict,
I think that's the only one that has not recanted because the rest of the kids did. One even recanted on the stand at trial, which was crazy. They have, I think most of them since been reunited with their biological parents.
Yeah.
Many of which who are now out of prison.
Yeah. But they spent a majority of their time in prison. One of them died in prison and never got any sort of justice for himself. Like, it's fucked up.
I
mean, that's all you can really say. It's fucking fucked up.
On so many levels. Like, the child sex abuse portion of this
because
is fucked up.
Because a lot of those kids,
the injustice portion of this is super fucked up.
A lot of those kids who are in that foster system, especially in Texas, are from families where they have experienced abuse, sexual abuse. Their parents are addicts. They have been fucking neglected. It's not hard to take that trauma and kind of, for lack of better words, play with it or play upon it.
Yeah.
And those kids, their parents were addicted to drugs. Those 3 children specifically I'm thinking about.
Yes.
And so they were taken away because of neglect, right? Yeah. Like they had hardships. yes, their parents didn't do a great job, but also, it wasn't really their fault that they were addicted to those drugs. You know, they were in poverty. Mm-hmm. So it also goes off on a nice tangent about the injustice as it relates to social status, especially in Texas. Yeah. You're talking about a small town, the woman who has all the money, who is fostering all these children, and the people who are absolutely objectively poor.
Mm-hmm. And there is allegations of like all of these, because she fostered like 16 kids or something like that.
I think she said she had 19 at one point, which is like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
How is that even legal?
There's allegations that part of it was because of the money that was coming in.
Especially in certain states, you get paid so much money and you get tax credit.
Yeah. And they talk about this aspect of getting more money for children who are viewed as more damaged,
so
quote
children
unquote damaged.
Who have physical disability, who are have neurodivergencies now, as we would call them, or students. There's me at work. Yeah, right. Or children who have experienced abuse already. You get, which is so disgusting, but you get paid more to deal with that.
Yeah, yeah. So this is on Max. I would definitely say check it out.
It's so weird having to say that now.
I know. Max. I have to retrain my brain. But I would definitely say check it out. It's it's only like 3 episodes, so it's not very long, but it's just a wild story. It's just in a lot of ways. Check it out. This is that part of the show where we say content may not be appropriate for all listeners. This week, we're talking about some creepy shit.
Yeah, like something's like watching you creepy.
Yeah. Like, the beach sounds were meant to relax you. Yeah. Summer vibes are be prepared.
Summer vibes are like the easiest time to stalk anyone.
Yeah.
Because everyone's out walking around. You can be like, is this person enjoying the beach or are they fucking stalking me?
Yeah. So this one, at least on my part, is going to be a little shorter, but I think still very important. We recently talked about some issues around stalking in an episode a few episodes ago. And it was sort of like an entry into talking about stalking through another subject, but I really wanted to kind of return and devote an entire aspect to stalking, because
stalking it up.
Yeah, it's a huge problem.
It's a massive problem.
It's a huge problem.
Especially, I think we touched on it a little bit, like in terms of like getting justice for people don't take it serious enough, because more often than not, it turns into a hard crime.
Yes.
Usually murder. Yes. But also like arson. Yeah. Or theft. Yeah. Or like kidnapping.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And there's definitely, it's stalking is like this changing landscape too right now, because
people
technology
previously
and
also like attitudes towards it have changed.
Yeah. So let's start off with some pretty troubling statistics. Mm-hmm. So these are all from the Stalking Prevention Awareness and Resource Center, which is a great resource for anything stalking related. Mm-hmm. Not like stalking resources.
Yeah. Not a how-to guide.
Not a how-to,
but what to do guide.
So an estimated 13.5 million people are stalked in a 1-year period in the United States.
That
1 year.
Sounds about right.
Nearly 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men have experienced stalking victimization at some point in time. 69. This one I thought was really interesting.
69.
Nice.
Not nice.
No, not in this case. 69% of female and 80% of male stalking victims were threatened with physical harm.
That's so interesting. 80% males and 69 females?
Yes. I thought that was really interesting.
That is interesting.
And I wonder why that is. Like, I wonder if it's just like women are more likely to jump to that sort of threat, maybe? I don't know. Whereas
yeah, I could see that. I've definitely told people I'm gonna punch you in the face before, so
you know what I mean? I don't know. It just was an interesting thing. And then the last one is more than twice as many victims are stalked with technology than without.
It's so easy now to stalk somebody. Just get on the Facebooks.
Yeah. And I mean, with the increasing use of like GPS tagging.
I was just gonna say, especially because we're tagging our locations all the time.
Yeah. Which honestly, I love the GPS, like the air tags and stuff. Mm-hmm. I have a tile on my keys. I kind of love that, and I think it's really useful. But there are these other ways that they can be used to very inconspicuously putting them on cars or in people's bags.
We talked
or
about that in mine.
Yeah. That's the kind of thing that I'm like kind of.
That was
wigged
back
out.
before an AirTag existed. You had to go to a spy store to buy that.
Yeah, you have to get like a magnetic little box to put like a yep.
Mm-hmm. You had to Inspector Gadget the shit out of this, okay?
Tape, lots of tape.
Yes.
With all of that in mind, I wanted to look at the Eva LaRue stalking case. Now, are you familiar with Miss Eva LaRue?
Her name sounds familiar.
Okay. She is an actor, which we will talk about. But LaRue was born in Long Beach, California. She started her public career very early on in life. She first started acting at the age 6 in commercials. She eventually went on to win Little Miss California in 1973 and Miss American Teenager in 1983.
That sounds not right.
A few years later, LaRue appeared on Star Search.
Oh, God.
Does that bring
My
back?
sister aspired to be on Star Search. Okay. Like, way too much.
That wasn't your thing?
No. I'm like, don't perceive me, you know?
Don't perceive.
Just, that's how I still am. Like, don't look at me.
True.
Until I tell you to look at me.
A few years later, LaRue appeared on Star Search, and then she decided to change her focus from singing and dancing to acting. Okay. So, a lot of times when that transition happens, you actually go through the modeling agency, like not the modeling agency, the modeling industry first. So you kind of go from modeling to acting. That's kind of a lot of
trajectory
pipeline. So after graduating high school in 1985, she began working with Judith Fontaine Agency and later Fredericks of Hollywood.
Such an agency name. Judith Fontaine here. Right?
Judith Fontaine, please hold. Then LaRue began appearing in Zumba infomercials.
Oh, God. Remember those days?
Sheer Cover Studio Mineral Makeup.
This sounds very QVC.
Yes. Yeah. She has been, during her modeling career, featured on the cover of numerous magazines, including LA Direct, Viv Mag, Orange Coast, InStyle Weddings, Woman's World, and Latina. LaRue's start on television happened when she became the co-host and announcer on Candid Camera alongside Dom DeLuise.
It's probably why I remember the name Candid Camera. Oh, Dom DeLuise. Yeah. What a throwback.
She was there from 1991 to 92. She then set her sights on the soap opera game when she portrayed Dr. Maria Santos Gray on All My Children. She was there from 1993 to 97, returned from 2002 to 2005. She did get a Daytime Emmy nomination for her role in All My Children.
Oh, okay.
And then in 2005, LaRue appeared on the George Lopez show for an episode. It's like his long-lost sister. But then she landed the role that I think she's probably most known for, which is Natalia Boavista on CSI Miami.
Okay. I did not watch CSI Miami.
No, CSI Vegas.
I didn't
OG
really
all the
do
way.
CSI.
CSI Vegas is the best one.
Much. I was
that might be a hot
more
take,
of a Law and
episode.
Order head. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair.
Specifically SVU.
Yeah.
Olivia Benson. Thank you.
Yeah. Things in both LaRue's personal and professional life were going really well. That is until 2007, when a stranger started a campaign of harassment that would last 12 years.
Who has the time?
That's what I want to know.
Are they unemployed? Because that's a full-time commitment.
Nope. He got a job.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Tell
well,
me
at least
more.
at the time. Most of the
hard to be employed now after you are a stalker.
I mean, at least when he was like arrested later, he had a job. Maybe he wasn't employed the entire time. I haven't seen his resume, but
you should definitely
I need
email him in
references.
jail. Yeah.
So
I need your CV, sir.
what is this gap here for 12 years? Oh, stalking?
I was exploring different avenues.
Community outreach.
Avenues to stalk this woman.
Oh my God. So most of the next chunk of my research comes direct from the sentencing memo. Starting in 2007, a man named James David Rogers started becoming obsessed with LaRue and somehow managed to find her address Rogers then began sending threatening letters to LaRue, signing each one as Freddy Krueger.
Oh, God. Be original.
In 2007 alone, Rogers sent LaRue 11 letters. One from just before Mother's Day that year said, quote, "The previous Mother's Day may be your last. I have been thinking how I am going to rape and kill you and your daughter. Maybe I must go to see you in Los Angeles."
Okay, when I think of stalking, I think of like, I am in love with you and you don't like me. Now I'm going to murder you. But this is the flip-floppiness.
It was not like an acceleration to this. It was this out
directly. I think you look like someone I need to murder.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you, a lot of the threats include threats of rape and murder. I'm not going to read those out over and over again.
We don't need to rehash that.
Yeah, there'll be other stuff that I'll read, but I was like, I'm not going to read this like 20 times. I don't need that in my life, and neither do you. So
right, exactly. We want you to go to bed tonight.
Maybe.
We want you to have full 8 hours.
Most of the time.
For mental health.
The sentencing memo talks of another letter from the same year where, quote, "Defendant said he planned to rape victim 1 and her daughter and then kill you both and chop your bodies into small pieces. I'm going to enjoy killing you. I hate you and I will destroy you. I want you to die, bitch, a most horrible death." That, I think, is my last reference. So it's like intense shit. I mean, these are anonymous letters coming to her house with just like horrible threats. Her daughter at the time that all of this starts is 5 years old.
The fact that like a 5-year-old, someone's like, yeah, let's chill. Let's do that.
Yeah. It gets worse.
I can understand if you don't like kids. But like, have you ever seen this child? Have you ever met this child? You don't know who this child is. And you're like, I'm going to kill him.
Yeah. Unless they're stalking the kid too. But yeah, I mean,
with her, she's famous, right?
Right.
Not many people are taking pictures, paparazzi pictures of children that are on, syndicated television shows. Yeah. It's not that kind of level of excessiveness.
Right. Well, yeah. So in 2008, the letters continued with another 19 being sent. So 11, 2007, 19, 2008.
This is where ChatGPT would come in.
Write me a threatening letter.
Threatening letter to a TV star and her 5-year-old child.
This time, they were addressed not only to LaRue, but to her partner at the time, as well as her daughter. The threats continued to be violent and indeed meant to terrify and intimidate, with one saying, quote, "Maybe if we meet, I won't hurt your boyfriend and daughter. I will see you soon." Another read, "I am enjoying stalking you. I'm going to instill fear in every part of your life." Whoa. Again, from the sentencing memo, Rogers, quote, "also made clear that his threats were founded in his genuine intent to act. He wrote to LaRue, 'You should take me seriously. I can do a great deal of damage to you and your precious daughter. I would think you would want to stop me for your daughter's safety. If I ever get a hold over her, you will be destroyed. You should be very scared of me.'" And then he goes on again to make threats of rape and murder. The fact that they were like, he is literally saying right here, like, you should believe what I'm telling you. Mm-hmm. You should believe me. Like, is very clear intent to act. Obviously, as the letters continued in increasing numbers and threats, LaRue became incredibly fearful. She began taking meandering routes to her house, made plans about how and where to quickly get help if anything were to happen.
So sad. You have to be the proactive one. That's like so fucked up.
Yeah. And they started keeping weapons like handy in various places of the house.
That's always a good idea.
Right.
I do that.
Right.
In my bag, in my car, in my home.
Yeah. She did move out of the country for a certain period of time and was in Europe for like a few months in hopes of like some distance and trying to, she did make some attempts to change or hide their mailing address in order to sort of
gotta get a P.O. box.
Yeah.
This is where the P.O. box comes in handy.
True. Obviously, this was all for their protection, but each time Rogers was able to find out where they were, what the new address was, what the new information was, and continued to send letters. Yeah. So Rogers had started sending letters to LaRue's daughter's school with horrific threats, still identifying himself as Freddy Krueger. And all of this pretty much goes on until 2019. I mean, 12 years of endless harassment.
And that's like, you know, you're changing like technology and they're still sending like mailed letters, you know?
Yeah. So it's this. And the thing is, too, I will say, like, obviously by this point, she has contacted authorities. They're aware this is going on. There is only so much without knowing who this person is. Like, there is obviously so much they can do. They have been, you know, keeping some of the evidence of the letters and stuff up until this point. But, like, they really didn't have any leads on, like, who could be doing this. So things really reached their peak just weeks before Rogers was arrested. Not only is he sending letters to the school, but Rogers started calling the school and posing as LaRue's daughter's father.
Oh, God.
Again, from the sentencing memo, quote, he asked a school administrative assistant to confirm LaRue's daughter was present at school that day and asked to speak with her. Before her daughter could get back on the phone, Rogers instructed the administrative assistant to have her daughter call him back and hung up the phone. End quote. So then LaRue gets this call from her daughter shortly after that's like, hey, I think dad just called. You know, do you know what's up? And so LaRue calls the actual father of her child and confirms that he had not, in fact, called the school. Rogers then called another 2 times on other days, leaving a voice and then eventually left a voicemail at the school containing threats of rape and murder. In total, Rogers called the school 18 times in the span of like a couple weeks.
How can they not track his phone number from that? Like, they should be able to tell, okay, like, this is a problem now. We should have someone here to track this phone number.
Yeah. So flash forward a little bit to 2018. If you remember, at this time, there was this huge genealogy boom. I'm sure a lot of you also recall that 2018 was the same year that James D'Angelo, aka the Golden State Killer, was finally arrested, thanks to these advancements in DNA and specifically genetic DNA testing. So the FBI was quick to utilize that tech in this case, running DNA that they had collected from the envelopes that they had been collecting, running it through a database, which allowed them to identify a list of potential relatives. This led them to somebody in Ohio. Of course it would be Ohio.
Yeah.
I know, every time we see Ohio, I'm just like, oh.
You know.
So they began surveilling Rogers, who at the time was working as a nurse's assistant in an assisted living facility.
That's how he has all the time.
Yeah. That's why I'm like, no, he's got a job. But
that he probably barely has to do.
Oh, I'm sure. After work one day, Rogers stopped at an Arby's for food. And then
stalkers love the meats.
He threw his trash away and he left. And the FBI agents that had been surveilling him
get those curly fries
swooped in. They managed to obtain a DNA sample from a straw that he had used. And they were able to match that DNA sample with the one that they had collected from the envelopes. So the genetic DNA match alone is not enough to get anybody on anything. You have to get a sample from your suspect to match to the DNA that you have existing already for that to like be able to hold up in court.
Exactly what they did with the Golden State Killer.
Yeah.
They tracked him down and went in his garbage and got stuff.
Because realistically, like, genetic testing is great for this kind of thing, but like, it is a tool, right? It's not the evidence.
And also,
it is a tool.
The court system hasn't caught up enough to be like, oh, you know, that genetic connection is enough.
Yeah. So the FBI finally arrests Rogers on November 11th, 2019. When they searched his home, they found a cell phone containing a bunch of pictures of LaRue and her daughter. They were able to determine that the cell phone had the same number that was calling the school. Although
they couldn't figure that out earlier?
Girl, I don't know.
There is literally caller ID on like every fucking phone.
And it's entire because this, like, him calling the school happened around the same time that they were surveilling him and getting his DNA sample. So like it's possible that they had to wait on those tests to come back before they could even get a search warrant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I get what you're saying. Like it shouldn't be that hard to like.
You don't even have to do this with DNA. Like there's so many other ways you can figure this out.
I know. So they found this phone. When they found the phone, there weren't any recent calls on the phone list, but they were able to determine that the call history had been deleted prior to the FBI getting possession of it. In April 2020, Rogers pleaded guilty to 2 counts of mailing threatening communications, 1 count of threats by interstate communications, and 2 counts of stalking. Now, according to that line at the sentencing hearing, quote, Rogers' federal public defense attorney, Wasim Salahi, told the court that his client suffers from psychiatric instability, including repressed gender dysphoria, and that people do irrational things when they're mentally ill.
I'm sorry. Repressed gender what?
Repressed gender dysphoria. Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, yo. Like that. Yo. That's kind of problematic in a lot of ways.
In so many ways.
In a lot of ways. Also, whatever. I can't with that right now.
Yep.
But that was yeah, right. That was according to the public defense attorney. Salahi asked that the court impose a non-custodial sentence of home confinement and court-mandated health treatment. LaRue, of course, gave an impact statement at the hearing saying that she had been undergoing therapy to deal with her fears, but, quote, we still think about him for a lifetime. The fear is with me forever, end quote. At the time, Rogers gave his statement via Zoom, apologizing for his actions and, quote, for what I said to you for the past 12 years and putting your family through this hellish nightmare. I hope someday I can earn your forgiveness for my misdeeds. I wish someone had intervened much sooner and I was caught much sooner, end quote.
Just rolling my eyes. You can't hear it, but they're rolling hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the worst statement I've heard, but not the best. He, at least in his statement, acknowledges that he did something. But yeah, it's still very much like, well, it's your guys' fault for not catching me, which is kind of bullshit.
But also, like, how many other people have done that?
Right.
Zodiac Killer.
Right.
Literally Golden State Killer. Like, all of the heavy hitters are like, why aren't you catching me? I'm BTK.
Right,
you know?
right. Yeah. So ultimately, the judge gave Rogers a sentence of 40 months in prison and 3 years supervised release. Rogers surrendered to a federal prison in Ohio on October 12th, 2022. I know that sentence seems
super light. Very light.
Yeah. But that is the story of Eva LaRue and her stalker.
Well, nobody died.
But like that shit is
I can't say the same for my case.
Yeah.
That is scary enough that you could die.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, for my case, we are gonna go into the pages of Playboy, Vicky.
Oh boy.
I don't know.
I didn't realize this was gonna be such a saucy episode.
Oh my god, so saucy. So much soft lighting.
Bow chicka wow wow.
Right? Now, since Hugh Hefner has passed, there have been a shit ton of stories coming out about all the problematic things surrounding Playboy. Not just the magazine, but things that have occurred at the mansion and other Playboy-related businesses.
Not surprised.
I want to say businesses because maybe not everyone's aware that it's not just a magazine or a club. So I'm going to give you just like the shortest history of Playboy you've ever had, okay?
Okay, I'm ready.
Playboy started as a magazine in 1953, and by the 60s, it had turned into Playboy Enterprises. This included many other businesses outside of the magazine. Of course, you have the classic Playboy clubs where we have all of the beautiful women in silky bunny costumes.
Yeah.
These were open from 1960 to 1986, so a decent amount of time. There were Playboy hotels and casinos, and those ran from the late 70s into the early 80s as well, which I don't know if you were aware of.
I don't know that I knew they had hotels.
So
and
they
casinos.
had hotels. They were exclusive hotels. There were only a few casinos. Most of the hotels were like in tropical locations, so like the Bahamas.
Okay.
They had a casino once upon a time in Las Vegas.
Gotcha.
Very classic.
No, didn't know that.
They also started doing Playboy celebrity parties when the magazine sales started to dip down.
Mm-hmm.
What they would do is there was one main mansion, right? The Playboy mansion.
Right.
But they would kind of rent out other famous mansions and also say that you were going to the mansion when really you were being sent to like some secondhand mansion in another place.
Right.
With a grotto still.
Yeah.
And Playboy bunnies and other celebrities. So they were like outsourcing the mansion parties to other areas to make it more enticing and accessible.
Okay.
So there were tiers of mansion parties you could go to.
Oh my
and if
God.
you made it to the main mansion where Hugh Hefner lived.
Oh my God.
Now the internet hit the magazine pretty hard because, you know,
Free porn.
exactly. I'm not going to pay for this,
No.
right? It's all about the editorial.
It's for the articles anyway. Yeah.
Until they started doing internet content. So internet-only clubs, exclusive videos, VHS tapes, behind the scenes of photo shoots.
Yeah.
They also released Playboy TV, which is a premium
yeah.
channel. But one thing that they did in the 90s that was super popular, that was really, like, when I think of the 90s, this is one thing that I think of, was a phone line.
Okay.
Did you know this, Vicky?
Yeah. 1-800 numbers, 1-900 numbers.
So they had a 1-900 number,
Yeah.
which if you're not familiar of what the difference between a 1-800 and a 1-900 is, the 9 means you pay more.
Yeah. 1-800 is toll free.
Yes.
1-900 is toll
Premium.
expensive.
Yes. They're called premium lines.
Yes.
There was 1-900 and 1977 or something. Those were like the very expensive, very, very expensive.
The more
lines.
numbers it has, the more expensive
the
that
more
number
money
is.
you pay.
Oh my God.
So Playboy would hire some of the playmates and other non-playmate women, like aspirational bunnies, to work these telephone lines. Now, one of them was Stacey Arthur. Stacey Arthur was actually born in 1968 in Naperville, Illinois. So she's from Illinois.
Okay.
She moved to Ohio at 19. In 1988, she managed a craft store in Bellefontaine, Ohio. And this is when she started dating a man named James Arthur. He was 34 and she was 19. Not problematic at all. He owned a tanning salon in the same building.
It's legal, I guess.
Yes,
I don't know.
but I don't know.
Yeah.
He owned a tanning salon in the same building as her craft store. And so they were just, shooting the shit, got along. Now, previous to this, he also was married and divorced and had children. She actually also was married and had a child and divorced by 19.
Wow.
Living that hard Ohio life. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah.
Now, immediately upon meeting and hanging out, they got married very quickly. Like within months.
Oh my goodness.
On June 4th, 1988, they got married. They brought their kids together. So he had 3 kids from a previous marriage. She had 1 daughter. So altogether, they had 4 kids. Stacey actually wound up adopting his children in 1989. After they married, Stacey wanted to pursue pageants and modeling. While she was in Ohio, she participated in the Miss Ohio competition and won.
Oh.
So she was Miss Ohio 1990.
Okay.
This opened the door for her to start doing other things and eventually being asked to be in Playboy.
Of course.
In December of 1990, Stacey went to the then USSR, so Russia, to compete in the Mrs. America pageant. That's for married women.
Oh my God.
It's like an offshoot. It's very funny.
Yeah, and does not exist anymore.
No. That was like very
That's a very of the time
Yes.
saying.
Stacey placed in the top 10 of the competition, and while she was there, Playboy contacted her and she agreed, and then it was announced that she would be Playmate of the Month for January of 1991.
Oh, nice.
So Stacey was chosen to be the month of January in 1991, and in the actual cover, She did her like traditional nude pictorial centerfold, but on the cover, she was in a pageant style banner sash with the crown and the curly hair and the very like I'm late 80s, early 90s pageant queen. And the banner sash on her said Miss January 1991.
Yeah.
So they kind of played into that a little bit.
I can see that. I can totally just like
yes, you can
picture
see it.
that.
I'm not kidding when I say
head.
the soft lighting. Like they like airbrushed everything.
Yeah.
Satin sashes.
Oh my God.
Now, immediately after her centerfold debut, Stacey Arthur began working at the 1-900 number hotline to earn extra cash. She was interested in pursuing country music now, and so she wanted to make enough money to cut a demo. So that was kind of her goal.
Okay.
Now, people who called into this line, they called them fans. They paid $3 a minute. Okay, so do the math on that.
$3 a minute?
A minute.
So for a 10-minute phone call, that's $30. Damn.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
And the women made about $50 an hour to speak with all of these callers. So that's not a bad exchange, I think.
Yeah.
The women on the lines were told to be really cordial, talkative, be sweet, but not too engaging. Don't talk about anything sexual, so no phone sex, and do not divulge personal information. Right? Okay, I could follow those rules. Easy.
So wait, this is not a phone sex line?
No. So,
I don't understand what it is then.
This was designed so that you could be closer to a Playboy bunny. So it's literally like when you call a psychic hotline and you're talking to that person about your problems.
Yeah.
It's like phone a friend. You know, like you're talking to them as a person to get to know. It's companionship. You are not allowed to talk about sex and be sexual. And
gotcha.
It's not that way. That's not to say that people didn't do it, but most people didn't because you didn't have to. And of course, men tried really hard to do that.
Yeah.
And so it was against the rules.
Yeah.
But one thing that Playboy did back then that they no longer do because of this was they would have a fun facts sheet that was put with each centerfold's issue in their own handwriting. So they would like handwrite information about themselves. So obviously their measurements, yuck. Where they grew up, like all of this detailed information that a stalker would love to get their hands on.
Right.
Right there at their fingertips, right?
Of course.
It made stalking so much easier, but also it became a jumping off point. So if you worked in the 1-900, you could kind of be like, oh yeah, this information about yourself. You really enjoy skiing or whatever. Let's talk about that. Yeah. So it kind of gave like pathways to have discussions as well.
Okay.
Now, one particular individual that kept calling the phone line was James Lindbergh. He was a 32-year-old man who was like the top caller for the 1-900 number for years.
Frequent flyer, huh?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
He spent $15,000 annually on his phone calls.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, Lindbergh was a truck driver, and although he made decent money, he was spending almost all of his paycheck on calling the 1-900 number.
Yo, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's what we call a problem.
Addicted, bro. Lindbergh would talk to many of the playmates, and most of them recalled he had no sense of humor. He was like dry, a little creepy, was very like factual. He sounded like he had some like neurodivergencies. Like if someone made jokes, he would get really uncomfortable. He wanted to talk about their fact sheets. So he would bring up their centerfold fact information and like be very like, you like this, blah, blah, blah. Like,
okay.
As much as an emotional connection as he could have without being like fun or silly. It was very like serious.
Yeah. Which I don't think would necessarily be that out of the ordinary because like the people and the men who are calling these hotlines tend to be people who maybe do not do well with women in the real life or not as conversational, socially awkward,
anxiety ridden, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so this might not have been like that strange either.
Right. Now, Lindbergh was one of the callers that would spend a lot of time with Stacey Arthur. And previously, there was no time limits for when a person called. They would as long as the conversation went is how long you would go. But because he was spending hours, like up to 8 hours on the phone with her in a day.
Yeah.
They implemented 10-minute call time limits, which infuriated him.
I could see, but homegirl's got to go to the bathroom at some point
Right?
and like
so
eat.
he would have to like hang up and call back at a later time. He could literally only talk to her in 10-minute intervals.
Wow.
And it was an automated phone line system to where you were automatically just put with somebody. You could make a request, but you might not get that request.
Yeah.
So James Lindbergh began to think that he was in this deep connective relationship with Stacey Arthur. He would call and speak to her like they were together as a couple. Although he knew that she was married and they had kids and they were together, he would fantasize about her and about the lives that they could have together.
Oh my gosh.
One day he got mad at her for not reacting to something that he had mentioned in a phone call, and he stopped calling her for a few days. Then
He's probably like, fine.
Yeah. Then he sent a 70 bunch balloon to the office to where she was to apologize for not calling her and being mad.
Okay, now this is getting weird.
Mm-hmm.
This is very weird.
She then called him, looked up his number and called him and apologized to him. And then they went back to their daily talking.
This is all weird.
It's very weird.
I like that. Very creepy vibes.
Yes. In late September of 1991, James suddenly stopped calling her altogether. Stacey sought him out and called him again and asked James if he was okay. Now, this was a really interesting behavior, and this is actually in, there's a new documentary series about Playboy and all of the crimes related to it that you can watch.
I'll
And this
have
is
to
where
check
I
that out.
picked up on, I forget the name of it, but it covers there's 4 different Playboy related cases.
Oh my gosh.
2 of them are stalking.
Yeah. Not surprised.
Lots of stalking heavy.
Yeah.
But her case was covered in one of the episodes. And they interviewed women that worked with her at the 1-900 number. And they would say that she was this just so caring about everybody. Not just, it seemed like she was being overtly caring about him on the phone call, but she was very concerned for his mental health.
Yeah.
And she raised that question to her supervisor, being like, he seems like he's like desperate and extremely lonely, and I'm concerned for him. And she was also that way with her coworkers. So this wasn't something that was actually out of the ordinary. Now, reading it as a person, like if you didn't know her, and this story is very short, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
You might not understand, like that's the kind of personality that she had. It was that she was like deeply concerned about people and really was a very, very nice person.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's uncommon for like these people who are regulars to something. I mean, I'm not even talking like a phone line, but just in general. Mm-hmm. You get to know your regulars. And like when they don't show up, you automatically assume something could be horribly wrong. Mm-hmm.
We had when I worked at Starbucks, we had a woman who had come through the drive-thru who was a hoarder. Like her car was filled with mail and trash, and all that was open was her seat. Mm-hmm. And one day she stopped showing up because she was a daily 7 days a week person. Yeah. And we didn't see her for like 2 weeks. And then she came through and her car was completely cleared out. And we were like, she's like, I'm going to therapy. And I was
nice.
almost cried, right?
Yeah.
Of course, slowly her car started to fill back up a little bit, but like she went away to get help.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like there's hopeful things like that. Right.
Yeah, it's not always bad, but
she Stacey Arthur feared for the worst. Like something happened to him. He's a daily caller. Mm-hmm. Now, when she called him, he said he was okay. And then there was this little bit of an exchange that happened. Now, Stacey went out to California to go do a Playboy shoot at the Playboy Mansion out there.
Okay.
And James asked if he could meet up with her when she was out in California.
Oh,
he's like, we made up. You're going to be kind of in the area. Let's see each other. Ugh. Now, she actually agreed.
No.
She said yes.
No.
But once she got there, she was so busy that she couldn't make the date.
Uh-oh.
Now, this caused James Lindbergh to go off the handle. She did say, like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's so late. Like, my shoot went hours. I'm really tired. I'm going to grab something to eat and go to sleep. I'll call you later, right? He did not like this. And so she attempted to remedy it, and he refused. And so she went back home. And this is when he began to stalk her and seek her out and find out where she was so that he could meet her in real life.
Oh, God.
He called the hotline and Stacy told him that she could not talk to him. She had to leave. And she then later left him a message saying, I think we need to take a little break apart. I'm having a lot of stress.
Yeah.
You know, like, this is starting to feel a little uncomfortable because he was being so pushy. And the way that he reacted when she couldn't meet him made her uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the interesting thing is she wasn't like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. She's like, I think we need to have a little break just for our own, you know,
God.
mental health.
Yeah.
Then Stacey Arthur stopped working at the call center.
Okay.
He tried
Had
to...
she been calling him on her, like, personal line?
No.
Okay.
It was only from the Playboy 1-900 number.
Okay.
So he tried to call other playmates on the line to get information to no avail. But he knew where she lived because they've talked about it repeatedly. And so he got on a train to Ohio.
Gosh. It's always Ohio, man.
Mm-hmm. He checked into a hotel in Bellefontaine, Ohio, where he stayed for a few days. He bought Stacy gifts at a gift shop and then figured out where her husband was working because she had mentioned he owned a tanning salon. Not that many tanning salons in Bellefontaine, Ohio.
I can imagine.
Now, he thought that maybe she would be there. So he showed up and instead ran into her husband and then was very awkward and said, these are for Stacy. Could you please give them to her? I'm James, the one she's been talking to. The awkward thing is her husband is also named James. So these are both men named James. So it's a little confusing.
Oh my God.
He's like, hey, James. Oh, hey, James. I'm James too. You know, like, ooh.
But also like, oh God, giving it to her husband is very cringe.
He then, after giving the gifts, Stacy's husband was like taken aback. And he's like responding to this, she doesn't want these. And so James Lindbergh became horribly upset, yelled at Stacey Arthur's husband, threatened violence against him, and then stormed off. Her husband threw the gifts away.
Of course.
James Arthur then went into his tanning salon and told the employees of the store, if you see this man come back, call the police. Be on the lookout for him because he is looking for my wife and something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And boy, was he fucking right.
Oh no.
Sometime later that day, James Arthur was bringing out tanning bed inventory to his vehicle when 3 shots rang out. James Lindbergh shot Stacey Arthur's husband, James Arthur, point blank in the street. James Lindbergh then took off. The police were immediately called and notified that it was James Lindbergh who had shot James Arthur. A few hours later, they located Lindbergh's car parked on a street. When they approached the vehicle, they found him slumped over in the driver's side. He had shot himself in the head in his vehicle.
Oh my. Wow.
When searching his place after the crime was committed, they came across a cache of tapes recording every conversation he ever had with Stacey Arthur.
Yo.
He had basically created a small shrine to her in his living quarters and recorded everything that they said together.
None of that surprises me.
Which he would replay when he wasn't able to talk to her on the phone.
Oh, gosh. Oh, God, that makes me so uncomfortable. This all makes me so uncomfortable.
Yes. And I wanted to pick this story because it's such a fucking plot twist because you think he's going to kill her.
Yeah.
But he kills her husband instead. And it's like, ugh.
Definitely did not see that coming.
No. In 1992, shortly after the death of her husband, Stacey Arthur actually sued Playboy.
Wow.
Now, this is actually in relation to something that had happened to her when she was shooting a video at the Playboy Mansion. But it also included this issue of her husband's murder.
Yeah.
She alleged that in 1991, a few months prior, she was drugged and raped by a butler and 2 security guards at the Playboy Mansion while at her shoot.
Oh my gosh.
This became a $70 million lawsuit, and during the trial, she stated that Playboy was also responsible for her husband's death because they failed to stop this man from repeatedly calling the 1-900 hotline.
Interesting. Okay.
The employees that she alleged raped her claimed that the sexual activity was consensual. Always, that's the go-to. The lawsuit was unfortunately dismissed and she never refiled. The employees were fired because it was because, quote, it was against the rules to engage in sexual activity during work hours. But that sounds highly suspicious to me.
Hold on a second. I think I missed something. So hold on a second. I think I missed something.
Okay, so she went to the mansion in California to do a shoot. While she was there, a butler and 2 security guards working there, she alleges, drugged and raped her at the premise.
Right. So they got...
Now, she immediately told Playboy.
After it happened?
Yes.
Okay.
After it happened. This was all put on, like, hushed up.
Yeah.
She didn't know this, but they were fired for having, this is for, quote, having sex while at work.
Oh.
And this was brought out in the trial.
That's, okay. That's so stupid. I mean, I'm glad that they were fired, but like...
But this happened across the board.
Oh my God.
This happened so much that, like, Hugh Hefner was known to do everything in his power to squash any and every single illegal issue that came up against the Playboy name. And this shit was happening all over the place.
Yeah.
There was a documentary that Holly Madison did. I don't know if you remember Holly Madison.
Yeah.
About all of these stories where she invited Playboy Playmates to talk about all of the horrible fucking things that happened to them while they were working for Playboy. And almost half, if not more, were women who had been drugged or just straight up raped. And they would come to, like at the club, they'd go to the Mother Bunny and they'd be like, do you want to lose your job?
God.
So it started as that. And then it was, we'll just handle this in-house, where they would fire the person, or they would move the Playboy bunny to a different area, or have them do a separate job, never ever admitting to anything actually ever being wrong, making people sign NDAs, like all of these things.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want the name to be tarnished.
Yeah.
And so in the same vein of that, they fired these 3 individuals and used, kind of I perceive a false statement of why they were fired, because I do believe that she was drugged and raped, because that was extremely common.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah. They were known to put women in horrible things. So those celebrity parties that I mentioned before would eventually turn into, for lack of better terms, prostitution. They were basically having these men pay for dates with these Playboy bunnies at mansions.
That's gross.
And were essentially forced to have sex.
Yeah.
So
horrible.
All of the properties that Playboy has owned since the magazine's creation in 1953, I shit you not, have had some legal problem happen there.
Yeah.
Stacey Arthur did her due diligence, and she went to the magazine and told them what happened, and they did nothing to protect her. And they actually instead, after she had raised these allegations, like right when her husband was dying, they fired her from Playboy. Wow. So she quit the phone line for her safety, and they fired her because she was causing a ruckus.
Wow.
Because she's like, all these things happen. This guy's fucking stalking me. Now he's killed my husband.
Right.
And you put me in danger previously. Like, you're liable. This is what led her to the lawsuit.
Yeah.
Now, according to the court documents, the prosecutor stated that there was some inconsistencies in her recollection of the events, which is what led them to believing that she was not being truthful.
That's
Stacey,
so frustrating because, like, memory, I mean, obviously at that time, I think, were not as knowledgeable about it, but, like, memory is such a weird thing.
Yeah, especially when you're traumatized.
Yes. Yeah. So, like, some inconsistencies are not necessarily, like, a sign that something is amiss, because every time you remember it, you're slightly changing something, or,
and then when you're under duress to be asked what happened, you're just going to say it as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
So she lost the suit. And basically after that, she went into hiding and kept to herself. So she was no longer in the spotlight. She didn't pursue music after this as she wanted to. And following a brief illness, Stacey Arthur died in April of 2019. So
that's unfortunate.
that is the stalking case of Stacey Arthur. Plot twist, they didn't kill her.
I mean, I guess that's good. Well, I guess check out this podcast.
Boycott Playboy and listen to this instead.
Yeah. There you go.
Not hard
there
to
you
do.
go.
Not hard to boycott Playboy.
Right.
My name is Hunter.
And I'm Haley, and we're your hosts of
Murder and Such, a podcast about true crime, serial killers, and other dark subject matter. Join us while we fill your ear holes with some crappy comedy and disgusting tales.
You can now find us on Spotify,
iTunes,
Stitcher,
Podbean,
and all of your podcatcher services. You can like us on Facebook, Instagram, and follow us on Twitter.
at Murder and Such.
Hope to hear from you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Man, do you remember like when we were, I wouldn't say kids, but like maybe teenagers when they had the Playboy Bunny like tanning tattoo things you could do? I
yeah.
had so many friends do that.
That was like from age 13 and
like,
up.
why? I mean, tanning tattoos
I
are
know.
funny, but like a Playboy Bunny on your
I know.
hip, like get fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Looking back, there's some shit that I'm like, wow, that was
Man, the 2000s were
incredibly
just nothing but
inappropriate.
cringe. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Whether it be emo, punk, or just a normal girl, you know, cringe.
True. All right. That has been our episode.
Our cringe-worthy episode.
Very cringe. We've got an event coming up in November. If we have more information, we'll let you know. That's what we got.
I'll hit you back.
Yeah.
On the flippy flop, as the kids say. No one says that. No kids.
Old people say that to
Yeah,
make
I'm
kids
old.
cringe. Do you have anything before we close out?
Don't stalk people.
Don't.
Stalking is bad.
Yeah. And also, if
you feel the urge to stalk.
if you feel something is amiss, you need to let somebody know.
Yes.
On the other end of things.
Even if you're like, this might be stalking. This might be light stalking.
Yeah. Let
Figure
the
it out.
authorities know. On that
Hire a
note-
PI. No.
Well,
Stalk the stalker. That's what I say.
stalk them back.
Yeah.
No,
How do
don't
you
do that.
like it? Huh? They followed you. Here's the pictures.
On that note, our sound and editing is by Tiff Fullman. Our music is by Jason Zashevsky, the Enigma. This has been the Bad Taste Crime Podcast. We will see you in 2 weeks. Goodbye.
Bye.
Left their bodies on the hillsides along the highway.
It was as if a wave of evil washed over this town.
We are all evil in some form or another.